question of what an atheist is itself an open question, because is it a doubt that becomes terminal about meaning in life and the existence of God or an afterlife, or is it a theological position that is cast in secular terms? I tend to think of it as the latter. I think atheism is a form of theology. It is a belief system. I guess that an agnostic would call atheists and believers both irrational for drawing conclusions about things that are really an open question. So I think atheism is a belief form in the non-existence of God that's an exact mirror image of the beliefs of religious people who start with the premise that God exists, or a greater power, or a creator, however you would like to frame that. So to me, atheism is one of the great world religions, and its declarative statements about the non-existence of God are a faith statement that comes from the same place in the hearts of atheists that faith statements from Christians come, which is a desire to give a shape and meaning to our lives. And they find meaning in a strictly materialist, what they would call a scientific approach to reality, whereas people like me, who are believers, tend to find meaning posited in a view of life which says that the unseen, those things we don't fully understand, also bring meaning. So I think atheism is a religious system. To atheists who say that people such as myself are delusional and not terribly smart, while I think my wife might agree a lot of the time with that on a personal level, I think they are people who lack imagination. And I'll put it this way. I think that when you look at the world, for instance, musical notes on a sheet of paper, and you don't take into account the unseen impact of what's really there. For instance, the goosebumps that I get when I hear Bach's B minor Mass, or the choir kicks in at the end of Mahler's Second Symphony. That can't be explained by reducing the notes on the page to a scientific formula. There is an unseen aspect to being a human being, to being a Homo sapien, to being this human primate that has evolved from the slime. Somewhere in consciousness that evolved with that process came an unseen aspect of appreciation for the world around us. So your most hard-bitten physicist who looks up at the night sky and looks at those stars and turns to the woman he loves or the man he loves next to him and says, "That is so beautiful," is taking the discussion into a non-rational, non-linear realm. So for atheists to not account for that part of life, what I would call the aesthetic dimension of the imagination, is to really rule out our entire experience of the facts which they hold to. So if you could have a scientific view that somehow could get rid of words like love, beauty, truth, and goodness, and still work in terms of a philosophical base for life, it would be easier to take atheists seriously who say that people are stupid who have a dimension in their life of what they would call imaginary friends or the unseen. The fact of the matter is it isn't only religious people who have that dimension. It is anyone who has ever found a piece of music moving. It's anyone who's ever cried when they have seen something so beautiful they find no words to express it. It's what I find looking into the eyes of my little 5-year-old granddaughter, Lucy, when she puts her arms around my neck and says to me, "Ba," she calls me Ba, "I love it when you take me to school." She's going to kindergarten. That moment can't be described simply by analyzing my blood pressure, my physiology, the fact that I have a genetic attachment to her. There's something unseen going on. And it's that aspect of our lives which actually inform us and give us the meaning that I think makes science, for instance, interesting and makes sense. It's to explain how we got there. What are the mechanics of those feelings? So I don't think it is stupidity to believe in the unseen and the undescribable. I think it's actually realism in a much more hard-bitten way than atheists who simply look at, say, the biology or the neuroscience of the experience of love. That's the limited view as far as I'm concerned. And it doesn't sum up what I feel in life. And so I just want to say it again. If you leave out the unseen, which is all aesthetic appreciation and value judgments about, say, what is beautiful, I think the whole purpose of science falls apart, because then life is purely mechanical, and why would it be worth explaining? Why would it be worth the passion of investigation? So I think the shoe's on the other foot. I wouldn't call anybody dim-witted, but I do say atheism lacks a basic imagination when it comes to really what makes us tick as human beings.